Hey RC modelers, my name is Doug and you're on the Flat Earth Workshop. This is part 11 of our Tiger 1 RC tank build, featuring parts from Henglong, RC Tank Legion Shop, Motto, Clark, and IMEX, maker of Tigan tanks. These metal tracks are sounding like the real thing. Love it. We're getting closer now to being able to actually run this tank. What we're going to be working on today is the turret and the electronics having to do with the turret. Just as a little demonstration, we're going to do a test fit here. Now, this whole cannon assembly fits into a cradle, and we're going to have to develop a few little parts that make sure that is fastened into place. We're also going to put in a servo that allows the cannon to go up and down. Now remember that a kit bash build is taking the parts that you like from different companies and putting them all together into a single tank that works well. Now you're going to be missing some parts along the way, so we're going to have to manufacture those, and we're going to have to kind of make it up as we go along to make everything work. So far we have used the Clark Electronics RECOIL kit, and today we'll be installing the servo elevation gear set that goes along with this universal system. Clark has been using these 3D printed gears along with its kits that immediately you'd think 3D printed may not be real compatible with gears, but actually they've made it work very well, and the parts that they sent to you look like they've previously been processed, although I'll do a little bit of sanding after I receive them just to make sure that they're as good as they can be. The mantlet does not have holes drilled in both sides to attach it to this universal servo unit, so they'll have to be drilled into place. If you've ever worked on one of these mantlets that are plastic, you'll know that those are in there. So first thing we have to do here is take the recoiling cannon, and that's the one with the threading on the ends, and then I'm just going to make a little notch in the metal. Here's just one more instance when a rotary tool comes in very handy, and we do that just so the placement of the drill bit will not wobble around when you go to drill the hole. As you see, it's pretty simple once you finally put that little divot into the metal surface. The main recoil assembly already has a pilot hole, and that is positioned in that part. However, it's very difficult to line up. So I found it better just to drill my own pilot hole in the main assembly, and it's going to make the alignment really perfect when I go to do it. Once the pilot hole is drilled, you'll see that the screws go in very easily. To mount the cannon in the pivot, the parts that were originally to go with this, I don't have, so I'm going to have to construct something. Now my two choices were to use some brass strip, which would be good. Instead, I'll be using a couple of layers of styrene, also known as ABS. I'm going to make small little strips and glue them to each other, and that should make a very nice and strong assembly. This pivot fitting is actually a little more difficult than it looks, and you'll see that in just a little bit. I'm using cardboard aided design again to come up with a template to cut the styrene with. And again, using my triangles and cutting on those triangles. Oh, for shame. Little sheets of styrene are fun to work with because they just snap. Makes you look like you know what you're doing. There's just something really relaxing about working with this stuff. I'm going to make several pieces that I can adhere to each other using some super glue. Since the last episode, I've been spending a little time doing some reading and perusing online just to see the way that we are going to align these different servos and the way that we're going to be centering them and basically tuning them for use in this tank. And this is kind of a newer thing for me. I'm used to building models and creating engineering type models. This RC thing, I've been away for it for a while. So guys, if you see me making a mistake, make sure you put a comment below and help me along here. I really do appreciate some of the camaraderie that you find on the forums online. So if you see me pop up, make sure you say hello. Sometimes I'm just making a reckless request for people to come on and do subscriptions and to write into the comments and like this website. Okay, we got these parts done. Let's set them aside for the next trick. It's going to be the Clark Elevation Servo installation. And as I said before, I'm going to do a little bit more sanding on these gears. There are 3 different speed gears or height gears that are included. And what you do is you just pick which one is going to work the best for your application. And I think really it's just a bunch of trial and error. However, this part that I'm installing right now attaches to every installation. There are 3 different screws that snap in, and then you just drive them into the universal assembly. At first I was a little bit concerned about maybe using too much force on the screwdriver and then stripping out, but really there doesn't seem to be much of a problem with this, so feel free to just torque them on down until you're satisfied. First I put the screws in very lightly, and then I go back and torque them one by one until I'm satisfied with the stiffness there. Now putting it back into the collar, the little pivot point here, I can see that the vertical movement is really too small for this tank, and I suspect that this little tail piece that's on the universal assembly is probably the one that is to fault. So I'm going to make a little experiment here and take this part off and see if that helps us out at all. There's really no worry for that inner piston to be able to come out. It's already fastened into place, so no problem there. Well, now we go back to the pivot bridges that we just built, and you can see that I have just cut into them a little bit just to relieve that action, which, by the way, now looks like it's exactly what we need. Grabbing a hold of this servo, it's a metal servo and rather heavy duty. Clark needs some kudos for including this one in their kit. So far, I've been pretty impressed. Now, what I'm going to try to do is use double-sided tape to fasten this servo. It seems to be at the right height, but it is going to take some experimentation. This is really not even the final tape that I'm going to be using, but it'll work right now for what we're trying to do, just to see if we're close and in the ballpark. And you can see on that collar gear that as we rifle it up and down, it seems to be working pretty well. So I'm satisfied at this point. Let's set that aside. I have 2 different cannons. One has the threading at the bottom. Now, when I purchased this one, I really could have gone with just using the original. However, I didn't know what the differences were. So now I've got 2. Now, I had already installed the muzzle brake on the other cannon, so now we need to take it off, which is kind of a tricky and messy little operation. What I'm using is some nail remover, which works really well, as you see. You just need to use a little force for it. Now we're going to put it onto the threaded gun, and that's going to be just as simple as using some cyanoacrylate glue and making sure that it's in the vertical position, see. And remember, we sanded on the mantlet a bit, so this gun would be able to go back and forth. We'll see whether the paint scrapes off of this thing when we start to use it, but we'll just take that as time goes on. Again, we use this gel cyanoacrylate. The gel is a little bit nicer for me because it doesn't seem to run all over, and you can put it into place and then it's just no mess. Here as I twist, I'm going to try to get that up and down, and oops, I see I like the other side better. Now it is solidified and it's starting to look very nice. You know, the deeper and deeper you get into these builds, you keep thinking, wow, should I add something new? Now I'm even thinking about, for the rotation servo, maybe using some of these Emax units rather than the hang-long unit. However, I'm not really sure yet. I'm going to have to watch some videos of the original Tiger tank. And here we go, our turret is almost complete. Hey, I want to make sure that I ask again for people to subscribe to the channel. If you've been watching but just haven't subscribed yet, we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. And I would really appreciate it if you do that. And also like this series. Episode 12 is coming up next.